Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the D-Shift podcast. And I have a guest that's going to talk about something that's really critical for all of us as parents, if we are going through the divorce, or if we're grandparents or aunts or uncles, or even family friends that may be supporting a family going through divorce with children of any age. So I want to introduce you to Annette Evans Wilson. She has a very interesting story that I want Annette to share, how she overcame some personal and societal obstacles and went on to become an English teacher in a really challenging environment. And then, as if that wasn't a great enough career, she retired. And, rather than just sitting around and doing nothing, she decided to establish the U Life Skills and Leadership Educational Foundation. And that's really designed to help youth to engage in self-discovery, focusing on community service, and building empathy. And in today's world, boy, we could all use a little more empathy, I think. So, Annette, welcome.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here today. And what I have is not only for the youth, although it is for the youth. The great thing is it's helping the youth and their parents or teachers or whoever build bridges of communication, which means it also helps the adults. So that's the great thing. Any adults who are going through major changes in their lives, this is something that can really, really help them kind of traverse those changes and get through what's happening in their lives. I've been through it myself. And I know how hard it is to deal with changes. Gosh, I can remember growing up in an atmosphere where I was told, you can't. That was my life. You can't, no matter what I wanted to do, no matter what I hoped for in my life, it was, you can't. You can't because you're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not big enough. You're not small enough. You're not this, you're not that. You're not whatever it was I wanted to do, you can't do it. So I was raised that way. That was just the way my father was. And my mother did nothing to change that because she was told the same things. It was just kind of that atmosphere. So she just kind of let it all happen. And of course, the siblings, it becomes the same thing.
Sure.
And they were raised that way too. I mean, it's not that they were raised any differently,
Right.
But it was that same thing.
Yeah.
And so all I wanted to ever be was an English teacher. I just admired my English teachers so much, and I loved English. I wanted to be an English teacher, but of course, you can't do that. You can't. You're not smart enough. You don't have the right personality for it. You can't. Yeah, just the whole business. And so, fine, I guess I can't do that. I managed to graduate high school. I did do that. I ended up getting married, but of course I was told I would fail at that too, and I did. I managed to have 2 children, and I decided I would not fail at parenting, even though I was told I would. In fact, my father even let me know that they would be willing to adopt my children to keep me from failing with them. But no, I was not going to do that. I was going to succeed with my children. And in order to succeed, I knew that I could not support these 2 wonderful boys on a high school education. Del Taco just was not going to do it for me. And so I had to get an education. I decided that I was going to become an English teacher. And what did they say about that? You can't. And so I went and I registered for college without telling them until I actually had done it. And of course, they told me that was the most ridiculous, stupid thing I had ever done in my entire life. And I was going to fail at that. And that was going to be a waste of money that I could have spent on something else with, just that was ridiculous. And what did I think I was doing? And I said, well, maybe I can't, but I will.
Right. Yeah.
And then that just changed the whole tone of things because, all of a sudden, there was a different word to work with. And they said, well, fine, if you insist on doing something just so ridiculous, you don't have to worry about really getting really good grades. All you have to do is pass, because you know you're not smart enough to get good grades. All you need to do is just pass. You don't have to get honors or anything. And I just looked at them and I said, well, maybe I can't, but I will.
Right.
And I'm the first one in my family to graduate with honors.
Yay. And you
then
know,
yes.
I was going to say, this is such a powerful story. So I know so many people who have had that. You're not good enough. And sometimes it's not really overt like that. It's just oh, don't even, are you sure you really want to try that? Gosh, that seems like why don't you try something easier? That's the kind of message. I was very lucky. My dad was like, whatever you want to do, I'm going to back you 100%. And my mom did the same thing. So I had a completely different message, but I love how you turned that mantra of, maybe I can't, but I will, into this amazing experience that you've now expanded this, and you're working with families and youth to help them understand what they're capable of, right?
Exactly. Well, I was hired immediately at San Bernardino High School, which is an inner city high school. I mean, it's stereotypical for inner city when you think of that, the gangs, the whole business. And of course, you know what I was told about that. Like, you can't do that. They're going to chew you up and spit you out, and that'll be the end of that. It was the best 20 years of my life. I loved it. I said, maybe I can't, but I will. And you know what they told me there? They said, well, these are kids who have been told they can't all their life. All they need is somebody to tell them they can.
Right.
And I wanted to start laughing, because I knew that having been told you can't by the most important people of their lives, I wasn't going to be able to come in and say you can. That wasn't going to work. I couldn't do that. I had to change it. Something had to be different. And so I did change it. I said, you know what? When people say you can't, look at them and say, well, maybe I can't, but I will.
Yeah. I love that. And that, that's the message I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people listening, and probably everybody listening, because we've all had somebody tell us we can't do something that in our hearts we know we are absolutely capable of.
Well, we have to change it.
Yeah.
To turn it around and to make it different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody says, oh, well, just tell them you can. No, that doesn't always work.
Yeah. That old saying
can about still has that negative, maybe I can't.
Yeah.
It still has that possibility of not, but I will.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think it's so important, because we do, those subliminal messages, or those constant drip fed messages, those are the ones that go way down into our subconscious and stick there. And we have to really make that flip. And I just love how powerful and uplifting that is.
Yes. Yes. That's why when I retired right after the pandemic. What I found during the pandemic was my students, what happened during the pandemic with students, and we all know it.
Right.
Students signed on and then they played games.
Yeah.
They didn't work.
I sometimes do that on I'm not playing games, but I'm certainly not focused on the meeting.
On what you're doing.
My
right.
mind kind of drifts. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's what students did. We know that their educational opportunities were not taken advantage of, right? I mean, we know that. That's a fact. Well, that was not a fact with my students. And the reason I know that is that my students were present. Not only were they present, meaning they were logged in, but they were present, meaning they were participating.
Right.
They were answering questions. They were turning in their work. They were doing the work of the class.
Right.
And the work of the class was learning who they are. My class became a know yourself English classroom. Instead of doing, you might call it traditional English classwork, We did things that that help them understand who they are.
Yeah.
We identified, what are the masks that you wear? And in doing that, well, we read Mask of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe. We read Dressing Up for the Carnival by Carol Shields. We analyzed these because that's what you do in an English classroom.
Sure.
And as we analyzed those, we analyzed ourselves. And we talked about ourselves and what masks do we wear? Because dressing up for the carnival isn't about a carnival. It's about what do we wear when we're out in society,
Right.
when we dress up for our daily lives.
Right.
And so we talked about ourselves and what masks do we wear because we have to wear them. They're necessary.
Right.
And we don't want to give them up. And
Yeah.
we shouldn't give them up. We
Right.
should not give them up. And what are the masks that we wear one place that we don't wear another place? And what are the masks that we can give up? And we talked about all of these things, and then they wrote essays about them.
Right. And
Because
this is what I love about teachers that are passionate about what they do, because they do this kind of stuff and they engage kids in, and this is why, oh my God, I don't get me off on this tear about standardized testing, because I could just go for days on this one. But this is the benefit. And this is where I think where we're going to come to, Annette, in this conversation, is that divorce is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for you to learn more about yourself, for your kids to learn more about themselves, and for you to strengthen and develop that empathy and develop that sense of belonging and support as a family unit, whatever that looks like, maybe with only one parent or maybe with both parents, but two separate households. There's so much potential for growth and understanding and development there that I get it. Parents are overwhelmed, but it's still there and we can help our kids, right?
that's exactly where this went. Let me grab it here. Oh gosh. Yeah. Get the right one. Here we are. I just got a new version of my book because I just changed the title a little bit. But like I said, after the pandemic, I went off and I started a nonprofit, which was working with youth. But you know what? The parents said, we need this. Because it was not only the masks, we then did Maslow's hierarchy of basic needs. And we taught the kids, what I did there was I taught the kids, you do what you do because of your needs. And if you can adjust your needs, if you can take your needs and say, you know what, if I can satisfy this particular need, then I can be more authentic. I can do more of what I can do more. I can accomplish more.
Right.
But I have to know what my need is.
Right.
I have to know where I am. And parents are saying, well, don't I need that too?
Yeah. And so let's take a little while and let's go into that Maslow's hierarchy of basic needs, because it's not new. This has been around. I mean, I did my educational training in I don't even remember now, mid in 1980s. And it was a big thing then. So this is tried and true, and it has gone through the research. It's very well evaluated. So Annette, can you tell us a little bit about what that is and why it's important for kids, but particularly for parents, educators, and people in the community in positions of authority?
Absolutely. What we've got is a triangle. And on that triangle, we have different levels of needs, okay? And at the very bottom of that triangle, we have our physiological needs. And those physiological needs are the very basic needs you have. You need food, you need water, you need a place to sleep, you need a roof over your head. These are the things that you need in order to survive.
Right.
And everybody has those needs. Air, you need air. You need these are the things you need to survive. The second one is safety. You need to feel safe. Okay. Next, you need love and belonging. Okay. So that's the next one. The next one that you need is esteem. You need to feel like you're important.
Right.
Okay. And then finally, you need self-actualization.
And that's at the very tippy top of the pyramid, that self-actualization.
Yes.
Right.
Now, we treat the pyramid differently. Maslow said you go from one level to another level to another level, and you can't move up until you've reached that level.
Right.
We don't say that. We say you can be in more than one level at a time to be authentic.
Right.
For
Right.
example, a homeless person still lacks some of their basic needs. However, they may still feel a sense of love and belonging
With their
because
community,
they
right?
have their little group there. They
Right.
may feel that sense of belonging. I had an aunt, she has passed away now, who was often homeless. She was mentally ill and was often homeless. But that was where she found her sense of belonging. When she was in an apartment, when they managed to get her into a place, she did not have a sense of love and belonging.
Right.
She was isolated.
Right.
So she did have love and belonging when she was out in her little group of homeless people.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so she had that. So
And I
we
think,
are in different places.
and I was going to say, so I want to really kind of stress this because I think this is such a critical part. The basic, the food, clothing, and food, air, water, clothing thing. This is why it is important that kids have, nutritious meals. And if they can't get them at home, and sometimes that is no fault of the parents. Sometimes there's just, there's financial challenges. There's, illness. There's all kinds of things that can come in there. That's why school food is so important for these kids because they, that may be the only good meal that they get. So I just want to stress that this isn't something that just the family has to be aware of. The school should be aware of it, the community, but that second layer is safety. And so that's mental, physical, emotional, spiritual safety. And if kids are going through a divorce and they're concerned about, where am I going to live? Who are the parents I'm going to be around? Am I going to get to see my grandparents? Am I going to get to see my brothers and sisters? Or if there is violence in the family or alcoholism or drug addiction or whatever, those kids don't feel safe. And so that gets really hard to move up to, okay, I really want to do good at school because all their energy is being spent in protecting themselves. So, Annette, this is why I think this is such a critical thing to talk about with parents.
Absolutely. But another thing that's really important that we need to look at, not only with kids, but with adults, with everybody, is our individual identity. And that's where we get to our peripheral identity. Okay, so look at who we are as, think of a dartboard. Okay, and we've got our circles in our dartboard. And if we're authentic, we're shooting the dart at the center.
Right.
The problem is most of us are living our peripheral identity, and that's the outside circle. Our peripheral identity is the identity that comes from the outside, all of that from the outside, and that's who we are. And you talk about we all need a nutritious meal. What is a nutritious meal? A nutritious meal is whatever our cultural identity has taught us a nutritious meal is. So you might say, this child did not get a nutritious meal. But mom says, yes, they did.
Right.
I gave them a roll and a cup of coffee.
Right.
Well, who's right?
Yeah.
They didn't have eggs and toast and milk. They didn't have a nutritious meal. Yes, they did. Because this is what I taught them. This is what I was taught, and I was raised on that. And look at me, I did just fine.
Right.
So we've got our peripheral identity here. And who are we to tell that person you're wrong? Because now we've taken them out of another level, and we've taken away their safety, we've taken away their esteem, and we've said you don't belong on this level of Maslow's hierarchy. You don't belong there. You don't belong there because I've said you're not good enough.
Right. Right.
I've taken you away from there.
Yeah.
Am I better than you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is where that whole, like you say, your cultural identity, those masks, the influences that we've lived under. All of these things come into play, and it can be tough when we're dealing with life transitions to take a look and start thinking, where did I actually get this belief? Let's say about nutritious food. Where did I actually develop the belief that this is nutritious food? And is it valid? And is it correct? And then if we need to make a shift, we make it, or we say, no, I know I'm on the right track, and we keep on going, right?
Right, right. And that's one thing that my book does, is we use what's called the identity wheel. And through really examining our peripheral identity, we break it down to what are the 5 things that really make us who we are, the 5 peripheral things. I mean, there's a lot more than 5, of course, but we take the 5 main ideas. It might be our family. It might be our religion. It might be our education. It might, what are the 5 main things that make us who we are? And based on those 5 things, we analyze them. Do we make all of our decisions because, I am who I am because of my children? I am who I am because, what is it that informs my decisions or makes me who I am?
Right.
And then we decide, am I being authentic or not?
Right.
And sometimes that is authenticity, and sometimes it's not authenticity.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I love this. This is such an interesting concept. Annette, before we go any further, what is the name of your book?
The name of my book is called Know Yourself. And the first book is Know Yourself, Embrace Your Peripheral Identity. It's in the Know Yourself, Live Your Authentic Life series. And the second book will be out. Oh gosh, I just got my proof copy. It will be out within a couple of weeks. I got the proof copy, and of course it had some errors in it that need to be fixed. I'm in the editing phase on that. It should be out within about 2 weeks. And that one is Know Yourself by Developing Your Unique Personality.
And are these available on Amazon?
They are available on Amazon. Your Unique Personality will be available within a couple of weeks.
By the time this podcast is out, it will be out, right?
It will be out.
Yes.
It will be out. Yes, it will. And that one is, if you think again of that dartboard, your unique personality is the second circle. Now, a lot of people would think once you get to the second circle, you're ignoring the first circle because you've gotten closer. Yay, I don't need the first circle anymore. We don't do that. We still need the first circle. What we do now is we take your personality and we teach your personality how to connect with your peripheral identity, because that's where, that's where you become authentic.
Right.
Too many people are, I'm going to act this way in this, in this area, and I'm going to act this way in this area. When I'm with my friends,
right,
I'll act this way. When I'm with my family, I'll act this way. And when I'm, these different areas, I'm going to act in these different ways.
Right.
We can't do that. That's not authentic.
Well, you can, but you feel like a fake when you're in certain environments, right? Yeah, you are. You're completely being fake. And it impacts. I think that's really confusing for kids. So unfortunately, we're almost out of time. I can never believe how fast these conversations go. Annette, if people are to buy your book, can they work through it with their kids? Like, could this be a family exercise?
Actually, it is a workbook.
Okay.
Let me show you.
Okay.
It's not workbook pages.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of ways to do it. One way to do it is if you go to www.youlsl.org. I have programs. For example, I have one that's actually starting, it runs 6 weeks and then it's off 6 weeks, and then it runs 6 weeks and then it's off 6 weeks. And it's called Building Bridges. And it is about teens and parents. And that's what it does, basically, is it teaches teens and parents how to communicate.
Right.
And so they can find out when the next one starts.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I think that this topic is so relevant for people going through divorce. So one of the things that I've noticed is with the tweens and the teens, when parents are going through divorce, sometimes they're like, I don't even know who this kid is anymore. All of a sudden they become, behavioral problems. They're very confrontational. They're very non-compliant, this kind of stuff. That's why I think this would be such an effective way for both, mom, dad, and the kids to work through and maybe grow stronger as a family, even though they're going through divorce or another kind of life challenge within the family.
Well, the other thing is I coined the term teenitude.
Yes, I know. I remember that.
As kids go through that phase that we call attitude, the reason we call it attitude is because their brain at that stage is changing and they're starting to develop their personality.
Yeah.
The problem is their personality is different from our personality. And so we call it attitude.
Right.
It's not the same as it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so we call it attitude. It's not attitude, it's teenitude because it's who they are and who they are becoming. And if we can learn how to take our personality and their personality and work together with them, we can have such a wonderful time with their teenage years.
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise, it's not fun.
And I was going to say, if you're interested in more on this, go over to my YouTube channel. Just look for Mardi Winder Adams or Divorce Coach for Women. And Annette and I did an interview on my Divorce Discussions YouTube channel. So take a look at that. We go into all of the teenitude, and we also talk about 4 distinct disc type personalities and how that might play out with your kids. So Annette, we are out of time. I cannot believe how fast this goes. Of all of the things that we've talked about, what do you think is the golden nugget of wisdom you want people to remember?
That we are individuals. And just because we think something is right doesn't make it right for everybody. Look at how society is today. Families are breaking up. Friendships are breaking up. Everything is breaking up just because somebody doesn't agree with us.
Right.
My own son and his girlfriend, I mean, they were headed toward marriage, but their political views didn't align. And so they broke up. We're different.
Yeah.
People are different, but just because we have different opinions and different ideas, that's what makes the world go round. That's what's a great thing. Let's embrace difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make it a good thing.
Absolutely.
Make it something that we can do to make the world a better place.
Absolutely. Annette, I know you mentioned this earlier, but can you please give us your website one more time?
Absolutely. www.youlsl.org.
Annette, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom. And I love this conversation. I'm a big Maslow's hierarchy fan. Woohoo! So thank you for sharing that. And I want to thank everyone for listening in to this episode of The D Shift. And don't forget to tune in again next week. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.